20 old daily jobs that have faded into history. Ever wonder who lit the street lamps, caught rats by hand, or delivered water door to door? Step back in time and discover the forgotten workers who kept the world turning, long before automation and apps took over. This is a journey into the vanished jobs that once shaped daily life with grit, skill, and a human touch. Milkman. Not too long ago, early mornings in neighborhoods came with a familiar sound. The gentle clink of glass bottles and a friendly hello from the milkman. From the 1920s through the 1970s, his daily visits were more than just deliveries. They brought fresh milk, butter, and cream straight to the doorstep, all with a smile and a quick chat. It was part of the rhythm of everyday life, a comforting routine that helped build a sense of community. The milkman wasn't just a worker, he was someone you saw regularly, someone who made mornings feel a little more personal. But over time, supermarkets took over. Aisles filled with options made home delivery seem old-fashioned. Slowly, that friendly figure disappeared. The convenience of shopping in bulk replaced the simple joy of a fresh bottle left on your step. Today, the memory of the milkman brings back thoughts of slower, more connected days, a time when service was personal, and neighbors knew each other by name. The shift from doorstep delivery to store shelves says a lot about how our priorities have changed. Ice delivery men. Think back to a time before every kitchen had a fridge, when staying cool in the summer meant waiting for the ice delivery man. From the early 1900s to the mid-1950s, he was a vital part of daily life, bringing much-needed relief from the heat. His arrival, often announced by the creak of a wagon or the rumble of a truck, signaled help was on the way. These men hauled huge blocks of ice with skill and strength, helping families keep food fresh and homes a little cooler. Back then, their service was as important as electricity or running water is today. They were a regular part of the neighborhood, known and appreciated by everyone they served. But times changed. When electric refrigerators became common, the need for daily ice deliveries slowly faded. What was once an essential job quietly slipped into the past, leaving behind only memories of a simpler time and the hardworking men who kept things cool, one heavy block at a time. The elevator operator. Before elevators ran on autopilot, there was always someone there to take you up. The elevator operator. From the early 1900s through the flashy days of the 1970s, these folks weren't just pressing buttons. They were trained professionals, guiding elevators by hand, stopping at just the right floor, and making sure your ride was smooth and safe. Step inside and you'd be greeted with a smile and maybe a quick chat before reaching your destination. It was a small moment of connection in the middle of a busy day. These operators brought a bit of warmth and personality to something as simple as an elevator ride. But like many jobs, technology changed everything. Automated elevators took over and those friendly faces disappeared. What used to be a shared social pause in your day turned into a quiet, solo task. Press the button, wait for the ding, and ride in silence. The elevator operator is now a memory, a reminder of when even the shortest trip came with a human touch. Telegraph operators. Back before phones and the internet changed everything, there was one job that kept people connected across long distances: the telegraph operator. These folks were experts at Morse code and played a vital role in a massive communication network that stretched across the globe. Just picture a busy telegraph office, filled with the steady tapping of keys as operators turned words into dots and dashes, sending messages in real time. Whether it was breaking news, business deals, or personal notes, they helped deliver it all. From the mid-1800s through the early 1900s, telegraph operators were essential in train stations, newsrooms, and government offices. Their work kept information moving and people connected. But when phones came along, they were easier to use and more flexible. Over time, the telegraph and its operators slowly disappeared from daily life. Gas station attendants. Remember when getting gas felt like a personal experience, a brief connection on a long drive? In the golden age of cars, gas station attendants did more than pump fuel. They were part of the journey, offering small acts of care that made travel smoother. Picture pulling into a station and being welcomed by someone who, not only filled your tank, but also wiped your windshield, checked your oil, and maybe asked where you were headed. These workers, with tool belts and friendly smiles, brought a human touch to every stop. They were a steady presence along highways and small-town roads, helping drivers stay safe and comfortable on the move. In the mid-20th century, their role was as familiar as the cars themselves. But over time, things changed. The rise of self-service meant fewer attendants and less personal contact. Slowly, this once common role began to disappear from everyday life. What used to be standard service became a rarity, something you might only find in a handful of places today. Have you or someone in your family ever worked one of these old-school jobs? We'd love to hear your stories. The Film Projectionists. Back in the golden days of movie theaters, before everything went digital, it was the film projectionist who brought the magic to life. Tucked away in a dark booth above the crowd, these skilled workers managed huge reels of film, making sure each frame ran smoothly across the screen. From the early 1900s through the end of the 20th century, their work was just as important as the actors on screen. They knew how to handle the light, the timing, and the fragile strips of film, creating a seamless show that carried viewers into other worlds. The hum of the projector and the flicker of film dancing through the beam of light were all part of the experience. But times changed. Digital projectors took over, and with them, the projectionist's hands-on role faded. Now, it's more about managing files than threading film. That quiet presence behind the scenes, once vital to every show, is now a memory. Like a beloved black and white film, warm and a little grainy. The Knife Sharpeners. Before throwaway forks and factory-made tools took over, a certain sound used to travel down neighborhood streets. The clear ring of the knife sharpener's bell. Carrying a portable grinding wheel, these skilled tradesmen were once essential, keeping kitchen knives and workshop tools in top shape. Right up through the late 1960s, their work mattered. A sharp blade wasn't just helpful. It was necessary for everything from preparing meals to crafting by hand. These traveling sharpeners were a welcome sight, restoring edges with care and precision. People relied on them to make everyday tasks easier and safer. But things changed. As prepackaged foods and disposable items became more common, folks needed sharp blades less often. Slowly, the knife sharpener's visits stopped. That familiar bell and the smooth glide of a sharpened blade faded from daily life. Water carrier. Before running water flowed from every tap, people relied on the steady hands and strong backs of water carriers. From ancient times right up to the early 1900s, these workers made sure homes and businesses had the water they needed to drink, cook, clean, and bathe. Picture them walking through narrow streets and dusty roads, balancing heavy buckets, clay pots, or guiding carts pulled by animals, all to deliver life's most essential resource. In many towns, they were more than just delivery workers. They brought news, shared stories, and became familiar faces everyone knew. Their presence kept daily life moving and connected communities in small, meaningful ways. But as indoor plumbing spread and water pipes reached into homes, the role of the water carrier began to fade. No longer needed in a world of faucets and modern plumbing, they slowly vanished from everyday life. Soda jerks. Once a lively part of everyday America, the soda jerk stood proudly behind the counters of corner shops and drugstore fountains. From the roaring 1920s through the swinging 1960s, these energetic workers weren't just serving sodas. They were putting on a show. Picture walking into a packed soda fountain, filled with chatter and the sound of clinking glasses. And there's the soda jerk, flashing a grin while whipping up fizzy drinks with flair. They mixed sodas, scooped ice cream, and blended shakes with the kind of style that made customers smile. These spots weren't just places to grab a treat. They were where friends met up, news was swapped, and the soda jerk brought a little sparkle to the day. Their mix of skill and personality turned a simple drink into an experience. But times changed. As fast food chains and bottled drinks took over, the soda fountain scene began to vanish. Slowly but surely, the soda jerk, once a star of small-town life, disappeared, leaving behind sweet memories and the echo of laughter in a place that used to bubble with life. Switchboard Operators. In the rich history of communication, few roles were as important or as personal as the switchboard operator. From the early 1900s into the heart of the 20th century, these operators kept people connected, handling a maze of cords and jacks with speed and skill. Picture rows of women in busy rooms, headsets on, fingers flying as they plugged calls through to homes, businesses, and far-off cities. Their voices brought a friendly warmth to every conversation, making each call feel more human. They didn't just connect lines, they connected lives. Often they knew the people they helped, sharing in their joys, their worries, and their day-to-day stories. But as time marched on and technology evolved, machines began to take over. Automated systems replaced the hands and voices that once filled those switchboards. One by one, the rooms fell silent, their purpose gone. The switchboard operator faded from daily life, leaving behind the echo of ringing phones and kind voices, and the memory of a time when every call began with a real person, ready to help. What modern job do you think people 100 years from now will look back on the same way? Lamplighter. Before electric lights brightened every corner, cities relied on the quiet work of lamplighters to chase away the dark. These men, seen in the early morning and again at dusk, moved through the streets with long poles tipped with flame, lighting each gas lamp by hand. Their steady routine brought a soft, golden glow to roads and alleys, creating a sense of comfort and safety as night fell. From the 1700s into the early 1900s, lamplighters weren't just lighting the way, they also cleaned the glass, adjusted the gas flow, and kept everything in working order. Their job blended care with precision, turning street lighting into a nightly ritual that brought calm to bustling towns. People knew their faces, often spotting them as they made their rounds, marking the change from daylight to evening. But like so many trades, this role faded with new inventions. As electric lights took over and automation replaced human hands, lamplighters quietly disappeared from city life. What remains is the memory of a time when every evening began with a flame and a familiar figure lighting the way. Blacksmiths. Before machines took over and mass production ruled the day, towns echoed with the sound of blacksmiths at work, hammer striking metal in a steady rhythm. These craftsmen, masters of heat and muscle, shaped iron into the tools, hardware, and horseshoes people relied on. Step into one of their forges, and you'd find a glowing world of sparks and sweat, where every clang marked progress. From early days through the mid-1900s, blacksmiths were essential, their skill touching nearly every corner of daily life. Their shop stood as proof of what skilled hands and hard work could create. But as factories grew and machines got faster, the role of the blacksmith began to change. No longer needed on every corner, the trade slowly faded from everyday use. Today, blacksmithing survives mostly as a niche craft or a nod to the past, something seen at fairs or practiced by artisans. Newsboys. In the busy streets of the past, a sharp shout cut through the morning air, the voice of the newsboy. From the early 1900s through the lively 1970s, their cries of "Extra! Extra! Read all about it!" became part of the daily rhythm in towns and cities. These kids, often with ink-stained hands and stacks of papers under their arms, dashed through crowds delivering the day's headlines. They weren't just dropping off papers. They were the messengers of the moment, carrying stories of world news, neighborhood updates, and everything in between. In a time before phones and online alerts, they kept people connected, right on the street corner. But things changed. As the world moved towards screens and digital updates, the newsboys' role began to fade. Their voices, once so common, slowly disappeared. Still, their memory lingers, a symbol of a time when getting the news was something physical, passed hand to hand, read over breakfast, and shared with a neighbor, knocker-upper. Before alarm clocks sat on every nightstand, people counted on someone else to get them out of bed. 'The knocker-upper'. These early risers walked the streets at dawn, using long sticks, batons, or even pea shooters to tap on windows and wake folks up. It was a simple, quiet way to start the day, especially for factory workers or anyone with an early shift. Picture someone standing outside in the early morning fog, gently knocking on glass to make sure you didn't oversleep. From the late 1800s up through the 1940s, this job was a key part of daily life in many towns. The knocker-upper made sure businesses opened on time and cities came alive each morning. But as alarm clocks became cheap and reliable, the need for that personal wake-up call disappeared. Slowly, the sound of tapping on windows was replaced by the buzz of bedside clocks. Today, the knocker-upper lives on only in stories. A reminder of when waking up on time meant trusting a neighbor with a stick and a schedule. Typewriter repair technician. Back when typewriters ruled the office and the sound of clacking keys filled the air, one profession kept it all running smoothly: the typewriter repair technician. These experts knew every spring, lever, and gear inside those sturdy machines. From the heavy manual models of the late 1800s to the sleeker electric versions of the mid-1900s, they made sure each keystroke came out clean and precise. Offices couldn't function without their typewriters, and when one broke down, the technician was just a call away. Picture rows of desks with busy typists and tucked away in a corner or making rounds through town. The repair technician, toolbox in hand, diagnosing problems, cleaning out dust, realigning type bars, and replacing ribbons. Their work was quiet but essential, making sure letters, memos, and reports got out on time, and without smudges. But everything changed with the rise of personal computers. As digital word processing took over, the trusty typewriter became obsolete and the technician's job slowly faded away. Their deep knowledge of mechanical writing machines, once highly valued, became a niche skill. Today, they're part of a forgotten trade, a symbol of the days when writing was tactile, mechanical, and maintained by a master of moving parts. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment 1 to let us know you're still following. Chimney sweep. In the pages of history, few jobs were as essential or as dangerous as that of the chimney sweep. From as early as the 1500s in England and peaking during the Industrial Revolution, these workers kept homes safe and warm by clearing out the soot and ash that built up in chimneys. Back then, fireplaces were the main source of heat, and a blocked chimney could mean deadly fires or toxic smoke. Many sweeps were young boys, chosen because they were small enough to squeeze through the tight, dark flues. Their faces black with soot, they climbed through cramped spaces, risking falls, suffocation, and long-term lung damage. It was hard, dirty, and often heartbreaking work. Over time, as cleaner and safer heating systems became common and child labor laws were enforced, the traditional role of the chimney sweep began to fade. Today, chimney cleaning still exists but looks nothing like it once did. Modern sweeps use tools, training, and protective gear, far removed from the grim images of soot-covered children. Daguerreotype photographer. In the early days of photography, long before snapshots were just a click away, there was the daguerreotype photographer, a true craftsman of a revolutionary art. Introduced in 1839 by Louis Daguerre, the daguerreotype was the first widely used method for capturing real-life images. Picture a time when having your photo taken was a rare and thrilling event, and visiting a daguerreotype studio felt like stepping into a world of science and magic. These photographers worked with care and precision, polishing silver-plated copper, applying light-sensitive chemicals, and using mercury vapor to develop a single, highly detailed image. Each photograph was one of a kind, well, no copies, no negatives, just a precious keepsake frozen in time. Throughout the 1840s and 1850s, these studios buzzed with people eager to preserve their faces, their families, and their moments. But like many early inventions, the daguerreotype was soon overtaken by faster, cheaper processes. When the collodion method came along in the 1850s, it signaled the beginning of the end. Slowly, the daguerreotype faded from use, remembered now as a beautiful, delicate chapter at the dawn of photography. Video store clerk. Before binge-watching and instant streaming became the norm, Friday night meant one thing: a trip to the video store, From the late 1970s through the early 2000s, these stores were more than just places to pick up a movie. They were cultural landmarks, and at the heart of it all stood the video store clerk. These folks weren't just ringing up rentals. They were walking film encyclopedias. Whether you were in the mood for a romantic comedy, a gritty thriller, or some obscure foreign film, they had a recommendation at the ready. Picture rows of shelves stacked with VHS tapes and DVDs, movie posters on the walls, and customers wandering the aisles trying to decide what to take home. The video store clerk was there to help, to chat about favorite films and maybe point you toward a hidden gem you never would have picked yourself. They added personality and passion to the whole experience. But then the digital age arrived. Streaming services and DVD by mail changed everything, and slowly the stores emptied out. The video store clerk, once a weekend staple, became a thing of the past. Today, they're remembered with fondness, symbols of a time when picking a movie meant more than just scrolling and clicking. Rat catcher. From medieval streets to early 20th century alleyways, few jobs were as grim or as vital as the rat catcher. In an age when rats swarmed through homes, marketplaces, and sewers, spreading disease and ruining food supplies, these individuals were society's first line of defense. Armed with sacks, traps, poisons, and sometimes trained dogs or ferrets, rat catchers braved filthy, dark places most others wouldn't dare enter. Their work became especially critical during outbreaks of bubonic plague, when rats carrying infected fleas helped trigger some of the deadliest pandemics in human history. Rat catchers weren't just brutes with nets. They had to be clever, fast, and fearless. They studied rodent habits, learned where nests were hidden, and developed strategies to catch rats in large numbers. Some were even hired by city officials or private citizens desperate to protect their homes and food supplies. Though often feared and sometimes shunned for their dirty work, their role in keeping communities safe was undeniable. But as science advanced and sanitation improved, more modern methods took over. The rise of organized pest control and better public health systems gradually replaced the old-style rat catcher. Matchstick makers. In the 1800s, the matchstick industry boomed, but behind the glow of every flame was a dark and dangerous truth. Thousands of workers, mostly women and children, labored in dim, crowded factories where the air stung with harsh chemicals. They spent long hours dipping wooden sticks into white phosphorus, a toxic substance that no one fully understood at the time. For many, this led to a horrifying disease called phossy jaw, which caused their jawbones to rot away, leaving them in terrible pain and often permanently disfigured. One of the most powerful moments in labor history happened in 1888, when the Matchstick Girls of London, fed up with the low wages, long hours, and deadly conditions, went on strike. It was a bold move, especially for working-class women in that era. They faced ridicule, risked losing everything, but stood their ground. Their protest drew national attention, sparking outrage and calls for reform. And it worked. Their courage helped bring about real change. Most importantly, the banning of white phosphorus in match production. Their fight didn't just improve conditions in their own factories, it set a lasting example of what workers could achieve when they stood together and demanded fairness and safety. Which job sounds awful? But you'd still try it for one day just for the story. Let us know, and don't hold back. Hand-painted billboard artists. Before today's high-tech digital billboards flashed changing ads in perfect resolution, towering signs were painted by hand, one brushstroke at a time. These hand-painted billboard artists were part painter, part daredevil. They worked high above the ground, often perched on scaffolding or platforms, carefully transforming huge blank spaces into eye-catching displays. Picture the 1980s when a drive through the city or along a highway meant passing by massive, colorful billboards created entirely by human hands. These weren't just they were works of art. Every image, every bold letter was painted with care and precision. The artists had to work fast, often with weather and deadlines pressing in. Still, their work added character to cities and highways, turning ordinary stretches of road into visual experiences. Their creations became familiar sights, often tied to local identity or culture. But as time marched on, technology changed the game. Large format printers and digital displays offered a quicker, cheaper option. Slowly, the brush gave way to the pixel, and the artists who once painted the sky began to disappear from the scene. Leech collector. Back in the 1800s, when doctors believed that draining bad blood could cure everything from fevers to infections, one unlikely profession became surprisingly important: the leech collector. Also called leech gatherers or leech finders, these individuals supplied medicinal leeches to doctors across Europe. Most were poor women living in rural areas, and the job was as rough as it sounds. They'd wade into marshes and bogs, often barefoot or with bare legs, letting the leeches latch onto them so they could be scooped up. Imagine standing in cold, murky water, waiting as dozens of tiny creatures bite into your skin. It wasn't just unpleasant, it was dangerous. Repeated bites could lead to infections, scarring, and significant blood loss. This grueling work was only possible in warmer months, since leeches slowed down in the cold, and even at its peak, the job paid barely enough to survive. Still, the demand was high, especially in the early 19th century when millions of leeches were used across Europe. But as the popularity of bloodletting faded and over-harvesting decimated wild leech populations, the profession slowly disappeared. While leeches still have a role in modern medicine, they're now farmed, not gathered from marshes, leaving the leech collector behind as a strange and haunting chapter in medical history: carriage drivers. Before cars filled the streets and engines drowned out every other sound, cities moved to the steady rhythm of horses' hooves and wooden wheels. At the center of it all was the carriage driver, a skilled, steady hand behind the reins. These drivers weren't just transporters, they were the original city navigators. Whether steering wealthy families to the opera or hauling goods across town for merchants, they knew every turn, alley, and shortcut by heart. Their deep understanding of horses and their ability to handle traffic with grace made them essential to everyday life. Carriage drivers helped keep cities running smoothly. They connected neighborhoods, supported businesses, and provided vital services to people from all walks of life. You could count on them to get you where you needed to go, no matter the weather or road conditions. But as the 20th century rolled in and cars started taking over the roads, their role began to shrink. The once busy carriage stands grew quiet. Some drivers transitioned into taxi work or found new trades, but the profession itself began to fade. Still, the memory of the carriage driver lingers, a symbol of a slower, more personal kind of travel, guided by skill, patience, and the sound of hoofbeats on cobblestones. Log driver. In the rugged world of old-time logging, one job stood out for its danger, daring, and pure grit: the log driver. Known in some places as river pigs or river rats, these men were legends of the water, helping guide millions of logs from deep forest cuts to distant sawmills using nothing but skill, strength, and sheer nerve. From the 1600s through the early 1900s, in places like North America and Scandinavia, rivers acted as floating highways. And it was the log driver's job to keep the timber moving. Picture them racing across rolling logs and fast-moving rivers, jumping from one slippery trunk to another, using long poles to steer the flow and break up jams. It took balance, courage, and an unshakable connection to the water. One misstep could mean injury or worse. Still, they did it with pride, knowing their work was vital to an industry that built cities and economies. But as trains, trucks, and new equipment came along, the days of the river log drives began to fade. The once crucial role of the log driver drifted into the past, leaving behind tales of bold men, roaring rivers, and a time when timber rode the current. And men rode the timber. Let us know in the comments if we missed a forgotten job you remember. If you enjoyed this trip through time, check out the other videos in our series. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Past Not Past with a fellow history lover. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.